Welcome back to the podcast. We got special guest Chris Sonnen
in the house. That's right. He is a family law attorney, and he has been considered the face of divorce law from 2021 to 23. That's like the last 3 years, voted by SD Magazine.
He's been seen on KUSI News and the Pulse Network.
That's right. And he's been practicing for 16 years. We have Chris Sonnen in the house. Welcome, welcome, sir. Run that in.
I also forgot to mention he was a park ranger.
Yes.
What's up, Chris? How we doing, man?
I'm doing good, guys. I like the energy. Great to be here. Quick second shout out to my friend Josh, who says my face has caused thousands of divorces.
All right, Josh. Okay. Awesome,
Right on.
man.
Hey, so give us a little background story, you know, where you come up, where were you born, how'd you come up, how'd you got into law?
Right.
Well, you know this is San Diego, right? So everyone's from San Diego.
Right.
False.
For sure.
False. Born in St. Louis, moved here at a young age. This place is awesome. Am I right, guys?
Of course.
San Diego.
It is.
It is.
And so went to school, Torrey Pines, go Falcons. And then did my stint in law school, was a park ranger, wasn't sure if I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I went back to law school and then clerked for a judge, came back to San Diego and just grinding after that. So, I mean,
Nice.
What else do you guys want to know? That was the 30 seconds.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good overview.
Wait, so you went to law school, left law school to become a park ranger, and then went back to law school.
I did.
Tell us about that. Dive deeper into that.
So easy. So I worked for the federal government. I was working up at Yosemite, and I was living in Yosemite Village. And so it's just amazing, guys. You got waterfall to the left, waterfall to the right,
Nice.
bear jail in the front yard. And it was an amazing job. Also, cemetery around back, not creepy at all. So it was an amazing job, but it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not a 12-to-12 job. It's an all-day, everyday job.
Yeah.
Right.
And you are not getting paid all day, every day. And so you can either sign up for a lifetime of public service deprivation, and I still got friends doing it, but it's constant struggle bus, man. A lot of these contracts are 9 months not to be renewed. You might not have great benefits. You're on an hourly basis. You're dependent on people going missing to get overtime, danger pay. So it's not like the most stable thing. So I was doing that, and then I went back to law school, and I wasn't sure. I think, you know, every good lawyer kind of has that moment where you're like, I'm not sure about this.
Yeah.
And the first and second year of law school, it's just this big time grind. And, you know, there's that classic movie from the 70s, The Paper Chase. It's about first year law school in Harvard. And it's like, they're up in your face. They're like, you're dumb, and you're dumb. And
That's funny.
that doesn't really jive with where we're at in 23. I think they've cut back on that a little bit, but I was on that cusp, right? I had a real property professor, and he was that way. He went down the row, and it was like Smith, Stevens. And he told us at the beginning of the course, I'm going to make each of you cry.
Wow.
That was his motivation in life. I'm going to make you cry. And you knew it was coming, and it was like, he's getting closer. You're like, okay, tomorrow's going to be my day. He's not going to make me cry. And then next thing you know, you're bawling in the middle of class.
God. Dang.
So, I mean, I had a few moments where I was like, maybe this isn't for me. But, you know, in the end, I wanted to go back. I wanted to help people. And so I finished it out. Also, it was like, it's a personal pride issue. I mean, and a money issue, right?
Right.
I mean, you're invested. You got hundreds of thousands of dollars of loans. And you're like, I got to get something from this.
Right.
And, you know, it's a personal pride issue. That guy made you cry.
Especially if
I'm walking out of here with a degree.
These tears are not going to waste.
Screw you. I'm crying happy tears now.
You know,
That's
it's funny that you mentioned that, and I think everyone has a different learning style, right?
Right.
Like I feel as a young man, you sort of need that scrutiny. You need to be told you ain't shit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
bleep that. But it does, it motivates you, you know, because it activates your ego, it activates your pride. And I'm not going to cry today, or I am going to make this, and I am going to become a lawyer, and I'm going to prove you wrong.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think most people that come out of law school, they got that kind of classic type A personality of, you know, you knock me down, I'm going to get up, I'm going to knock you down.
Right.
And, you know, even if you don't have the classic type A, I think everyone's got that personal pride where you want to finish it and you want to finish strong.
It probably takes that type of personality to even get through law school in the first place. I mean, with the workload and with everything else, it's like you got to be like that. If you can't handle a teacher and then the workload, you know what I'm saying? What's it going to be like for you when you're out there, when you got other lawyers, you got judges, you got, you know, they're going to be beating you down too. So it's like, you know.
Dude, totally. I mean, I mentor young lawyers, and I keep telling them, you got to have a passion for yourself, number one. I mean, you got to have that inner strength to say, I'm not going to let anyone walk over me.
Right.
I'm not going to let anyone tell me, you know, what's going on here. But you also got to have that self-confidence, walk out there into the limelight and say, I can talk to you. I can be a normal human. I can tell you the law. So, yeah, I mean, you got to have all of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you get into family law specifically?
Oh, man. So came out of law school, did the clerk thing, and I was working at a bankruptcy and tax firm.
Fun.
No. Tax code is one of the driest things out there. And, you know, I still got friends that are doing tax law. They're doing an amazing job. Don't know how they do it. And so I was in an office. I was the junior associate. And it was tough. I mean, there's a lot of times where I was like, why did I leave being a park ranger? Why am I here? I haven't seen the sun in 12 hours. What am I doing?
Right.
I had one of those interior offices. You guys got this nice glass window.
Right.
I had a tiny glass window. Nobody's walking by. No sunshine. I'm like, what am I doing back here?
Right.
So they had a case. And so, like many of these family law cases, there's like a crossover. Somebody's filing a bankruptcy. A lot of people have tax problems. Nobody wants to pay Uncle Sam. And they said, send in the junior associate. And at first I was like, I have no freaking idea what's going on here. It's crazy. It's like you go from bankruptcy and tax, which is like statute oriented. You know, it's like, hey, this is what 6015 says. Okay, we're good. When you go over to family law and you got all these emotions, obviously you got the laws, your benchmark, but like it's flying every which way.
Right.
And so I was like, this is kind of crazy. I could do this. And so that's kind of where it all took
Like
off.
all numbers to like all emotion and people.
Well, yeah,
Right? Yeah.
and it's more like making a difference because,
For sure.
again, you know, no disrespect to our lovely mortgage lenders and brokers. I got one, guys. It's cool.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're in bankruptcy court and you're fighting super hard for a lender who wants to foreclose on like 10,000 people,
Yeah.
you don't leave at the end of the day with
Feeling
a super good feeling about yourself.
For real.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So give us a little insight on what family law encompasses.
Oh, man, how much time have we got?
All the time.
All the time.
Well, give us the summary.
Well, let's start out with the fun. And the funnest thing, last 3 years, it's been COVID. Everyone hates each other. Not us. We love each other in this room.
Right.
But everyone else hates each other. Family law has been restraining or order-oriented.
Wow.
And so it's like you and I are going out, it ain't working out. Some people want a restraining order. Some people are entitled to a restraining order. Domestic violence, it's a serious thing. But last 3 years, everyone's not getting along. It's like the square peg and the round hole. Everyone wants a restraining order.
Right.
However, family law is way more than that. Traditionally, it's just like the basics. It's like we need a divorce. Hey, the standard in California is irreconcilable differences. We're not getting along. Let's just get a divorce. Let's be normal people. Let's move on. Right. Nobody does that anymore, but let's do that. Or even simpler, like you and I had a kid. How are we going to parent the kid? It's a paternity action. We can get fancy with unmarried cohabitants. It's a Marvin action. But fundamentally, family law, we're talking about all the fun stuff. Child support, spousal support, child support arrears, spousal support arrears, divorces. I think I covered everything, man. All the fun stuff. Dividing up property, selling homes, tax problems. I used to do a group with the chamber. And what I would do in my group is I'd go around the room and I'd say, let me tell you how family law intersects with you. I can do it with anyone. And everyone's like, no, he can't. He can't do that. And I could always do it. There's always a crossover with, I'm a pot farmer. Oh, yeah, we got pot issues in family law. Or, I'm running a brothel. Oh, yeah, we got those issues in family law. So all the fun stuff.
Dang, that's crazy.
Who do you mainly fight for? Do you mainly deal with the wives, the husbands, both?
I fight for everyone, man. I mean, again, last 3 years, it is nothing but fighting. Like it used to be prior to COVID that, people come in, they'd say, hey, let's work this out. Okay, let's work this out. And we'd be normal people. Last 3 years has been bad for everyone. Everyone wants to fight now. You come into my office, one of the first things I've said for 16 years is, hey, let's try and work this out. People just hear that, they're like, no, I don't think so, Chris.
Hell no.
I think we have a pretty even mix of moms, dads, and occasionally we get some grandparents. I also get appointed by the court to represent kids. It's called being minors counsel. So I fight for moms, I fight for dads, sometimes grandparents, and definitely my child clients. I mean, that's number one because, if I'm appointed onto the case to represent a child, means mom and dad aren't looking for them. So, they definitely get the special attention from me.
What types of cases are those, like when you're representing a child?
Still family law.
Right.
It's crazy. So some of these cases go really badly, right?
Yeah.
Like something's going on with mom, but something equally bad is going on with dad. The court at that point says, hey, I got 2 angry lawyers. I got 2 angry parents. Nobody's looking out for this kid or kids. And so that's when the court calls somebody like me, and we come in, we go to bat for the kid. Yeah.
So you deal with a lot of like foster kids and whatnot?
Sometimes we're more looking at like a third-party placement, like are we going to place them with grandma and grandpa? Are we going to place them with a family friend? But these are actually just kids that are coming from normal homes that, mom or dad is not looking out for them. Or sometimes, look, man, I've said it. Everyone hates each other right now. And so some of these people are looking at this as, I hate the other person so much, I forgot that I have a child that I need to be looking out for. And that's a sad state, and that's when court appoints us.
Wow. What do you think is the largest cause of divorce that you've seen come through your office?
Well, the bar is really low, right? The standard here in California is irreconcilable differences, means I don't like you. And so last 3 years, we've all been cooped up, right? Love it or hate it, we were locked down, and you've learned a lot about people.
The truth was revealed. The truth was revealed.
What are you watching on Netflix? No, I don't like that. How are you hanging that towel? No, I don't like that. You door dashed from 2 blocks away. Hey, no, I don't like that. So, there's always the big ticket items, right? Like infidelity is a huge one. It's always going to be there. And then financial issues, that's a huge one. But can just be simple things, guys.
Because we hear about some of these like celebrity, divorces where there's like hundreds of millions of dollars involved. And so I don't know if it's your opinion or what your experience has been, but like a lot of times when I see such and such famous, actor or business person, they're getting divorced.
Can we just say Johnny Depp?
Yeah, right. And they're losing literally like hundreds of millions of dollars. How does that? I know California is like they operate a lot differently than the rest of the country, but how does that usually work when, let's say, the person has made all their wealth, and then they meet this person, and then they get married, and then they get divorced, and then now they're getting taken for half of all their net. We're like, How does that really work?
How does it really work? I mean, man, it's complicated. That's such like a Pandora's box. So,
Yeah.
I mean, let's break it out to simple components. Like, number one, so California's community property state. So let's go with like Kanye, right? I mean, Kanye's getting that divorce, and Kanye is like the worst client. So he's getting the divorce. Well, Kanye has a prenup, right? Even though he's crazy, he's got a prenup. Someone was looking out for him there. And so the prenup is going to say, what's Kanye's was Kanye's. Kanye likes that, right? And so everything's always his. It's always going to be separate property. However, where it gets complicated is Kanye's got them kids, right? And so how much money Kanye's making is going to be relevant always for child support. So again, you got somebody like Kanye, always making crazy money, always going to make crazy money. I mean, he can say whatever he wants. He's going to make crazy money.
Right.
And so Kim, on the other hand, is probably looking at this like, you know, stop saying crazy things. Number one, you're hurting my child support. Not that she needs it,
Right.
but that's what she's looking at. But as long as he's making money, she can go back, modify child support anytime. I mean, there can be crazy amounts of child support. I mean, $15,000 a month, $20,000 a month. So I think that's where kind of the horror stories are coming out is
Right.
everyone's got this concept of, oh, equal division. Sometimes the division doesn't really hurt you. What hurts you is you're balling out on your money. You're going to be paying a lot of child support. That's
Right.
how the law is. So
Is it isn't it like, is it like elastic? Like the more you make, the higher the child support goes?
I mean, child support is fundamentally simple concept, but yet we're spending hours and days in court. Mainly it's how much you make and how much time you're spending with the child. There's some very limited deductions in there, but I mean,
Yeah.
basically it breaks down to that. So I mean, the sky can be the limit. The appellate courts, the Supreme Court of California have consistently said child is entitled to that lifestyle in both parents' homes. So, I mean, we can even throw out even crazier examples of, you got, football stars, soccer stars, they're making crazy money. They meet somebody, something happens, they have a child. The party who had the child is, not balling out on a money front. They're entitled to that child support from the higher earner. So, I mean, this is a crazy concept. I mean, this is why people go to court.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. Freaking
Have you seen any cases where the dad was able to set up his life in a way where he's like, you can't get me for child support?
Oh man, what is this? Living the dream talk?
Yes, always.
That's a two-way street too, which is interesting because I mean, especially in San Diego, we got so many successful women out here. I mean, with the biotech industries, communication industries. I mean, it's a two-way street. There's definitely, look, I think men are of the mindset that they don't want to pay child support. It's just kind of this traditional mindset. Right. And there's some people trying to do some crazy things. I mean, have I ever seen it be fully successful? I mean, not legally, but I mean, the justice system right now, love it or hate it, is a pay-to-play system. So, I mean, if you've got a guy, let's just stick with the men, who's got a series of S corporations and you got to walk through piercing all these corporate shells. I mean, there's a time and money concept here. A lot of people don't have the money to litigate it. I mean, you can get some relief from the Department of Child Support Services, both sides, and they'll, kind of try to go through it. But I mean, this is an area where some people will grind it out. They'll sweat it, and it's not necessarily legal. But can they prevail? I mean, the unfortunate thing is,
Yes.
Probably. Yeah.
That's
You didn't hear me
crazy.
say it, but I mean, yeah, probably. Yeah.
So what is it about the last 3 years of your cases, experience, success that's made you the face of divorce law?
Well, again, going back to Josh, he says this is the face that causes the divorce. But, we're willing. I mean, the fighting for your clients is really, I think, what sets us apart is, I have an amazing staff. We were talking about Rosemary before came in. She couldn't be here today, but I have an amazing staff, and I think you got to go from the ground up. I mean, I'm in court a lot of the day. I mean, if I don't have an amazing staff, calls aren't being answered, emails aren't being responded to, questions aren't being answered. People are getting pissed the F off. And, I'm probably out of business at that point.
Right.
So everyone in my firm has, I won't say a personal interest because that goes into a creepy, unforeseen zone, but they have an intense professional interest in getting clients a good outcome. So I think you got to start on the ground level, and I think that's what sets us apart. No disrespect to other firms in town, but I mean, one of the most common things I get on people calling in is they say, hey, I tried to reach my lawyer for the last week and nobody called me back.
Right.
I sent 20 emails and nobody responded to it. So, I mean, that's not happening at my firm.
Right.
The rest of it, I mean, is I take an interest in all my clients. I know who they are, what's going on in the case, and I'm willing to go into court and go to bat for them. I mean, part of that is being successful. Part of that is picking clients. So, yeah.
Huh. Do you have a bunch of other attorneys?
Right
well?
now, my main guy is Mr. Doty, Adrian.
Hey, shout out.
Shout out to Adrian. But, there's other people there. And, again, I got to have people back at the office because, if nobody's answering these questions, we're out of business. So,
That's great.
How did you end up starting your firm?
So I think this is not too dissimilar from any other field. It's like you get tired of working for other people. Am I right, guys?
Yeah.
I mean, so specifically, excuse me, bring this back down to the law front. I mean, lawyers, it's one of those zones where it's like, you're suffering through a lot of stuff. I think there's a lot of talk in the public realm of like doctors got to grind through the residency and nurses got to grind and all those people do got to grind. But lawyers, it's like one of those hidden things. It's like I was noting, you're stashed in a back room somewhere. You're expected to meet a crazy amount of billables. You're not seeing your friends or your family. You may not like your clients. I mean, it's tough. There's some tough times. And let's just put it out there. I mean, one of the reasons Shakespeare was going, let's kill all the lawyers, is lawyers are not likable people.
You seem all right.
Well, I may be all right, but I mean, lawyers are not likable people. And you're in a windowless room having to meet a high amount of billables. You're feeling you're doing the laboring and you're like, why am I working for this guy or this gal? I'm doing the work here. I'm the one the clients know. I want to go out on my own. So, I mean, specifically for me, I was working in a couple firms and, I had some great friends and they said, hey, Chris, I mean, come on, man, you can do this on your own. I had some great clients. They said, come on, man, you can do this on your own. And so I took the leap and it was crazy, man. I mean, at the beginning, it was just me, my cell phone, running around. I mean, I recall one time I had a briefing deadline. It was right before New Year's Eve. I was at the Kinko's, panicking, freaking out, trying to get all my papers together. But I mean, the dream is you're going to be somewhere someday where you're not at the Kinko's on New Year's Day making copies. And it worked out. So here we are.
What was like the first moment where like you described the leap, right? And then like what was the next step where you kind of went into the next phase? Where like, was it an office? Or did you hire somebody? Or like, when did you kind of settle in to like, all right, I'm actually doing this now?
I think the next step for me, and I think for a lot of lawyers, is you hire somebody.
Yeah.
Because you have that security of knowing somebody's going to be there at the office. And it won't be you with your cell phone running around like a crazy person. So, yeah, I mean, definitely first employee for me was when I knew I was like, okay, we can do this.
Yeah.
And then, you kind of build from there. So you always kind of have an office as a lawyer. I mean, whether it's a co-work space or an actual office or home office. But I mean, definitely having that first employee and then the second, you're like, then we're going to be doing this.
Yeah.
We're doing this for real.
How long did it take you and your business to get established? And when people start a business, the success usually isn't instant. Unless, let's say before you started your firm, you already had so many clients. You're like, time to start my firm, ready, so many clients, first employee, boom. Like how long, what was the progression into that?
Well, the date on my malpractice carrier application is January 1st, 2012. So that's
Nice.
when I started. And at that time, yeah, I mean, I did not have a huge client base and I did not have a huge advertising budget. I had an office, but it was mainly me and the cell phone, as talked about. So yeah, I mean, the first couple months were rough. You know, you're in this constant state of panic. Like, I could go back to my old job.
Right.
They would take me back. Yeah, they'd scream at me, and you know, there'd be other issues. But you know, you're always wondering, you know, am I gonna bring in new clients? I think within about 2 years, I was like, we're doing good, and we're expanding. Probably the benchmark moment was like 2019. It was been about 7 years, you know, kind of steady growth. And it was like, boom, we're off the chart now.
Yeah.
We're going off. And then it's like, as a business owner, you're always worried, right? I mean, you're always like, what's going to happen? They're going to shut down the government again. But, you know, ever since 2019, I'm like, we're here. We're
That's
established. We're going.
So we're always so curious about those beginning stages, you know, like the nitty gritty details. So like, what was a client getting process? Like, how are you generating leads in the very begining?
I mean, it's so different when you look at it now
Right,
and
I'm
then,
sure.
right? I mean, because the market is involved and a lot of things. But starting out, word of mouth, I had some good clients that pushed me. They're like, we'll go out with you. You represent us. You know, we'll refer you clients. The reality is, even though they have my back, that's never enough, right? I mean, you know, they're probably got like 2 people, 3 people that they're
Right.
sending in. It's not enough to sustain a business. I mean, starting out, we were on Yelp. I mean, Yelp's still around. It still sucks. Sorry. Because, I mean,
It's all paid now.
Well, number one, it's
Yeah.
all paid now. Number two, I mean, kind of the traditional problem is still there. It's like someone 1-stars you.
For some stupid
and
reason.
for some stupid reason, and it's hanging on. I mean, and when you're starting a business, you're like paranoid about the 1 star or the no star. I mean, I'll relate that, you know, at some point there's somebody who didn't like how I gave a consultation. It was a free consultation. And, you know, they were arguing with me the whole time. And then I said, look, it's not going to work out. Thanks for your time. I appreciate you. And it was like, blah, blah, blah. And then next thing I know, I'm at my desk. I'm like, you've received a 1-star review. I'm like, wait, what? And it's still there on the Yelp page, you know, that, you know, I can't say what I want to say, but that horrible person.
Right.
And it's still there like 6 years later. So, I mean, Yelp has its drawbacks. I mean, what else were we doing? Word of mouth.
Yeah.
We were in print. I mean, print also is one of those things we look at now and it's like, you were in print? What the heck, man? And, you know, there was also kind of a reason we stopped doing print because it was not successful.
Yeah.
But, you know, as time has gone on, you know, 2015 onwards, been on a few podcasts, TV appearances, some radio. I mean, I feel like we've done it all. It's crazy.
Have you done social media?
Yeah, so I mean, that's definitely, you know, 2018 through present day, it's all about social media, right? And it's also crazy too, because now, you know, back in the day when we were starting out, social media was there. It was right. I mean, you know, it was like Twitter, but it's not like it is now.
Right.
And I look back and I'm like, man, I could have had so many crazy TikToks when I had like time to do it.
Right.
And now it's like I'm running to court and I'm like, oh man, that's a genius idea, but I don't have time to do it. But yeah, social media is huge. I mean, especially for lawyers, there's not many lawyers who I think, including myself, to be honest, do social media that well. It's like, you know, we need a team and, you know, it's not
Because
really
you're
there.
busy.
Yeah,
It's
you're
hard.
busy. Yeah.
And it's complicated subjects, you know?
Well, yeah, and I mean, you know, a lot of lawyers are not fun, as
Right.
we've touched on. And the idea, you know, I'm going to hold my phone and be like, do the TikTok, and be like, you know, I got something else for you. So, yeah, I'm open to it. I just don't have time. So,
Yeah, that's cool. I want to go back to what you were talking about, the other side of family law that you first mentioned, which was restraining orders.
Dun, dun, dun.
So you had mentioned, because I didn't really think about it until you had said it, but there's obviously a lot of people that are trying to issue restraining orders that don't have cause.
Yeah.
They're just like, I want a restraining order. And then tell us about that. Like, what percentage of those are like not valid?
So, I mean, this is the area of law that nobody really wants to talk about, right? And It's a serious subject, and there's no real balance right now. And I don't even know if we can find a balance, to be honest. So, I mean, look, number one, we got to talk about it. I mean, we're all men. Domestic violence is a serious thing. I mean, if we're going to sit here in 2023 and be like, oh my God, they're issuing too many restraining orders. No, it's not true. It's tone deaf. I mean, it's a real thing. Having said that, the system has problems. And so the problem is this. Let's talk about a person who actually doesn't need a restraining order. And so the system is somewhat rigged for them, because what happens is they go to court. They write down a bunch of things. These things are not going to be true because they are not being honest. And maybe they're doing it intentionally. Maybe they're not. There could be a lot of reasons. But all the things they write down that aren't true, it goes to the duty judge. And the duty judge reads it, and they have to accept it as true because they don't know. That's their job. And they're going to vet it somewhat, meaning, I mean, it sounds crazy that Martians came down and did this. They're not going to buy into that. But I mean, if it sounds remotely plausible, they got to take it seriously. It's domestic violence. Boom. They're going to issue the restraining order. They're not going to call up the other party. They're not going to send them an email. They're not going to call their lawyer. Restraining order issues. Wow. It's a thing. And this is the area where the system's a little broken. I can't make it any better. I can't think of a better way because domestic violence is serious. But I mean, if you're an actual bad person who wants to write down bad things, you're going to get a restraining order for 3 weeks at a minimum. And so the problem then somewhat compounds from there. So again, if you're that bad person who's going to make things up, you're going to say that they're dangerous to their kid. Suddenly for 3 weeks, that person isn't seeing their kid. And that's not good either. And so there's remedies, but these remedies all happen later in time. So again, the first remedy is you're going to get that automatic 3-week hearing. A lot of people are fired up. I'm going to go into this hearing. I'm going to show the judge. Got my fancy lawyer who's wearing a fancy suit. We're going to...
Got Chris.
Yeah, I mean, or got anyone. I mean, it's not just a Chris thing. Yeah. We're going to go and we're going to show the judge that person's a liar. Well, the other problem is in the last 3 years is there's a lot of people filing restraining orders. And so whereas a judge 5 years ago might have only had 5 to 10 cases from 9 to 12, which is the restraining order calendar, 5 to 10 you can do in 3 hours, no problem. But when you got 19, 22 cases, 25 cases, you probably don't have the ability to do all those cases. And so you got people that are fired up, they want to tell the truth or their truth, and the judge is saying, I don't have time for this today, guys. I'm going to have to kick you out. I'm really sorry. Again, I don't have a solution to these problems, but this is the reality is you can get a bogus restraining order. It can get kicked out, and this can go on for months. And sometimes people will even want what's known as an evidentiary hearing. We can just call it a trial. It's a trial, and the restraining order will linger on. Now, do I have a better system? No, I don't. I just honestly don't. I've thought about this a lot. I know everyone's trying to do their best, but I mean, there's ways people abuse the system. I mean, it's like also like the child support thing. Right. Does anyone want to go on the record and say you can evade paying child support? No, nobody wants to say that. But I mean, if you kind of work it and the other person doesn't have money, yeah, you're probably getting away with something under the law that you probably shouldn't. So
the judge is sitting there, I don't got time for this. So when they say that, they're just saying that the restraining order is intact still. And I'm not going to listen to anybody. Sorry, it's still intact.
Well, it's a temporary, right? So, I mean, the temporary is not as bad as a permanent. Right. They're not going to say it like as disrespectfully as Mr. Sonnen here. Right. They're going to treat you respectfully. They're going to say, hey, you know what? I'm really sorry. I had 25 cases today. That first case took 40 minutes. No one would have known that. I just don't have time. And so you're going to have to come back.
Wait the 3 weeks.
Yeah, you're going to have to come back later. But yeah, I mean, the bottom line is it can drag on. Right. Yeah.
I think that's what made the Johnny Depp case so popular was for the first time you seen in court how it's so domestic violence is a really bad thing. Like you should never
don't do that.
Shouldn't be
don't
a thing.
do it. Don't do it.
Do not do that. But like you were saying, like it's so easy now. And all you have to do is hurt someone's feelings or like they're not a good person. And they'll make these lies about you, and the system is rigged to and not in your favor. So even if it's a lie, you have real consequences, and there's no way of really proving that you didn't do it.
Well, right. I mean, the system is definitely set up a certain way, whether you want to call it rigged. I mean, I don't know if I can go there as a lawyer. I'll let you guys not as lawyers say it. But I mean, I think the other thing that is really tough for people right now is identifying what domestic violence is, which is a nebulous concept. Like, I think we all know, like, I beat you up, that's domestic violence. You know, you and I do something that's not consensual sexually, okay, clearly also domestic violence. But where people get into trouble is they may do something and they may not think it's domestic violence, but the law defines it. So, I mean, a super common thing is like sharing your location, right? You know, we're BFFs. We've been going out for a while. I know where you are. You know where I am. During the relationship, as long as everyone's copacetic with it, hey, it's cool.
Fine.
But suddenly, relationship's not working out, and it's, hey, you were out in the gas lamp till 2 a.m. Who were you with? Oh, now you're stalking me. That's domestic violence.
Wow, interesting.
And so, you know, one of the things I think is also complicated for people is they'll say, but we did this during the relationship. Yeah, some of it's fine. Like, you know, you're sharing your location. Nobody cares about that as long as you're not actually stalking them. But when you break up, people don't understand the boundary of now it's not okay. I mean, and you see this in other areas like revenge porn. It's like, well, she sent me the dirty pictures. Yeah, that was fine at the time, maybe, but like you can't be disseminating them now.
Right.
So, I mean,
do they have to like, is there any kind of like date where they say like, well, what's your breakup date? Like, do they have to check?
Well, and so a lot of these DV cases will be talking about these type of technicalities, which
Right.
is when's the last time you shared location? It was this day. Did you turn it off? No. Did you know it was turned off? No.
Right.
And you would not be thinking that we're in court talking about when's the last time you turned off location sharing.
Right.
But actually, a lot of these cases, these are disturbing the peace cases, is a lot of testimony on that. Or AirTags, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like, AirTags are all over the news recently.
Yeah.
And it's like, this was a thing where at first, people didn't even know they were being tracked by AirTags. It was like, oh, I got a weird notification on my phone, and nobody cares. Man, my ex is here. How did
Right.
that happen? Or, you know, just like, again, certain things. It's like a lot of women and sometimes men, you got a really fancy man bag or woman bag, and you throw the AirTag in there because you don't want to lose it or have it get stolen. I mean, now the other person's saying you're stalking them with something that was just like actually designed to be security. So, I mean, yeah, a lot of these issues.
And I mean, you're seeing that too with like predators too, which is creepy, you know,
To
like
catch a predator. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we got all types of people in this pantheon. We got people that are issuing the fraudulent restraining orders. And then we got, there's some legitimate bad men and women out there, and they're doing all sorts of things. Like, I was just recently at a seminar, and we were talking about all the things that people are doing. Some of them you see all the time, like AirTags, location tracking. And then this guy was like deep diving into like, you can set a sleep number bed. And I had no idea.
No.
You can set a sleep number bed to a certain weight, and if somebody goes on the bed and it's a different weight, boom, your bad self is like, oh, I know what's going on. So, there's all sorts of crazy things out there.
It's crazy how technology is
I know.
always changing, like law and changing everything. Like,
Yep.
they have to catch up with technology changing so fast. It's like impossible for law to keep up. It's like always new litigation, new rules. Like,
Yeah.
people are nuts, bro. People are
People are
nuts.
nuts. That sort of reminds me of like, let's say you have your passenger seat, right? And you know the passenger always has to sit this certain type of way.
Who was in
And
here?
then they get in. Like, hold on, this ain't how my seat was.
Bro.
You was in here. You've been cheating.
All the time. Every
Dude.
single time my mom gets in the car, she says that. Who is sitting here? Gosh, it's so... And I'm just like...
Dude, my wife has all the settings on her car set preset to number 1, which is her setting.
Right.
And she's a lot shorter than me. Every time I get in, I'm like, for real? Again? And then she's like, well, I set you up. And I'm like, well, which number is it? She's like, 2, maybe 3. And I'm like, wait a minute, 3? And
Yeah,
she's like, well, our teens are driving now. And I'm like, I don't want to be number 3.
It's like you're Your knees are like hitting
Yeah.
the steering wheel. You're like, ah. Dude, that's funny. There's a lot of ways to get caught up, man. Just don't do it, guys.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
What are some of the main reasons, maybe like the top 3 reasons you're seeing the reason for restraining orders, you're seeing for divorce?
I mean, San Diego is such a high expense place. It's like, we love it, right? But everything is expensive. Like, dude, I'm not generally monitoring the gas prices, but dude, I'm watching it right now. I'm like, $6.15? Are you out of your mind? So the city is super expensive. Everything's super expensive. That puts so much strain on any relationship, right? And so people, I think, by and large, are struggling to get by. Everything's expensive. And when you got that kind of financial pressure all the time, mortgage rates are up, it's just like, can't do it. And then you're like, when you can't do it, you're like, I'd be better off on my own. I can move out of state.
Yeah.
It's like 1/4 of the cost. I don't want to be with you. You don't want to move to Arizona? Fine. We're getting a divorce. So that's financial pressure.
Yeah.
Restraining orders. I mean, top reason is people hate each other, man. I mean, the pandemic and the political climate, it's like, when things are good, things are good. When things are bad, it's I'm going to kill you. And if I can't kill you legally, I'm going to go to court and I'm going to make you suffer. It's the equivalent of murdering you. It's the legal equivalent. And so, I mean, some people, again, domestic violence is a serious thing. There's people still beating people up out there both ways. It's totally serious, not worth joking about. But the rest of them, there's this pantheon, and there's people saying, he's stalking me because we used to share location tracking. That's not necessarily a thing, but there's also people who are also stalking people, like they just can't let it go. Like, the relationship's over, you gotta let it go. And so, that's how it is. Finances, people hating each other. Top 3rd reasons, I'm going to say parenting differences right now. And it's kind of related. It's like, vaccines, love them or hate them. I'm not going into this swamp, but love them or hate them. People are really divided on vaccines right now. That also spills over into in-person learning and remote learning. I'm not going into that swamp either, but people have really strong opinions about these things.
Yeah.
And if you're dealing with someone you're already on the fence with, and you're like, oh, flu shot, no big deal. They're like, no, I'm not doing this. And then it's like, boom, mushroom cloud. I'm not doing anything. You're like, but it was just a flu shot. So, yeah, parenting your kids, money, and, there's actual problems out there for some people with domestic violence. No joke.
Yeah.
Do you have any like horror stories you can share? Like maybe your top craziest story?
So
without getting too much detail, but enough detail.
I'm always safest when I'm talking about things that are no longer active cases.
Yeah.
So I'll give you some examples. One of the things I'd like to see California do better is better mental health services for people. I had a case a few years back. This lady had a clear mental health problem, and that's horrible. And she's out there trying to get custody of her kids, but she should not have them. And in the courtroom, she was screaming at one judge, I want Judge Judy. No. You're not a real judge. And, this judge looked at her and started screaming back, Judge Judy's not a real judge. So, better mental health services is definitely needed. There's a horror story. Family law is an area where there's always a salacious story. One case I had, we were just talking about child support. It was just child support. But my client had been unfaithful during the relationship. So we had all these big document boxes every hearing, bank records, tax returns. And then all of a sudden there's a picture of my client's penis because she was self-represented and she was mad that he had cheated. And so every hearing she may have found a way to stick in a picture, pop it in there like, I know what you're doing. What else we got? We got all sorts of crazy things. Like I was involved in a case involving the cannabis industry. and we took a deposition, and, they said, yeah, we've got a safe on the distribution side, and the safe's full of cash. And so I'm like, tell me more. Well, yeah, we can go into the safe anytime we want. Who's monitoring you? No one. Well, how do I know how much cash you're taking out of the safe? Oh, nobody knows that. So, there's always something. Some of these stories, like the penis in the tax returns, it's more funny than that. Some of these stories, they start funny, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that. And then they have like a sinister
ugly
note at the end, and you're like, oh, not so funny anymore. Maybe we shouldn't have been laughing at the first part. So,
Right.
there's always something going on in these cases. That's just tip of the iceberg stuff.
Man.
Have you ever because you deal with a lot of couples.
Wait, I got one more before you
let's
go.
hear it. Let's hear it.
We're so close to the border. Everyone is always trying to tattle on somebody for going to the Hong Kong club. Pro tip from the lawyer at the podcast. If you want to use the services at the Hong Kong club or anywhere south of the border, cash is king, because they're going to get your bank statements. And the bank statements are going to show where the charges are.
And they're gonna know that you didn't go to China.
Right. And then some smart A lawyer like me in a fancy suit is going to be like, is that your charges? And you're going to be like, no, it's for my uncle. And no. So, go on. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a Hong Kong story.
Yeah.
Do you take American Express?
Yeah. We're going to get those statements too. So use the cash.
Yeah.
Oh my
Dang, that's crazy.
goodness. Have you ever had to, have you ever successfully coached maybe a couple, they wanted to get a divorce for pandemic reasons, they got sick of each other. Have you ever coached couples into being like, maybe don't get a divorce, and to where they didn't, now they're happy, they're not getting divorced? How successful are you at doing that? Or have you been successful at doing that?
I don't think I've ever coached anyone to stay together, because it's just like such a risky area, right? Fundamentally, the other thing is people are never honest with lawyers. It's like, you guys are always telling me something, and I'm like, okay, sounds good, yeah. And then later on, I'm like, hey, what's this text message? Oh, yeah, well, I sent that, but I shouldn't have. I'm like, you said you never sent any of these messages. Or, like the statements at the Hong Kong club. You told me you never been to Mexico. Right. So it's an area that's kind of fraught with peril. It's like also a lot of personal choice. I'll tell you what I do. Whether you're my client or you're a potential client or you're just someone I'm talking to on the street, the top thing I always say to people is divorce is expensive. And you're going to be paying for a bunch of lawyers in fancy suits or fancy dress outfits for women. And they're going to be saying mean things, just like you saw in the Johnny Depp trial. They're going to be saying all the mean things. We're getting paid to say the mean things. Yeah. And so why don't you do yourself a favor? And if you can go to counseling, work it out, then, hey, maybe that's great. Or if you can't do that and it's just like, no go, I hate this person, then why don't you try to work it out? And then you're going to save yourself a boatload of dough. No one ever listens to this advice, but, I always put it out there. The other thing I do is I'm receptive, is I have clients who come to me and they say, hey, I'm going to settle my own case. I say, hey, great, good for you. I have less things to do. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it does not. And then there's the third group of people, and these are the group of people, they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, I'm going to marriage counseling. Or, if they're not married, we're getting back together. We want to try and make it work. First thing I ask is I say, hey, are you safe? Nothing weird's going on in the house? Okay, I'm fine then. But if nothing weird's going on in the house, I say, hey, you got to try to make this work. You have kids. Out of this small, very small pool, there are some success stories, and I'm always happy to hear them. And then there's a lot of people that come back 3 weeks later and say, I hate that SOB. I don't even know why we were talking. I don't know why I let him move back in. And I say, okay, no judgment here. Let's move on. But I always think it's good. Look, we already talked about it. San Diego's expensive. Lawyers are expensive. if you can work these things out on your own, you're giving yourself so much of a leg up. And you're also, I mean, if you got kids, I mean, you're giving your kids way more of a leg up than you would be if all they see is you guys fighting each other and dropping the F-bomb 24/7. So,
what about mediation? Is that part of the process, or is it always just straight to court?
So mediation, it's actually very simple. Let's say you guys are married. I got to meet with you all the time. And I can't meet with either of you separately because then I get confidential knowledge. Like I may decide I like guys in blue shirts better, or I like bald guys better. I'm partial to bald guys. But it's like, I always got to meet with you at the same time. I got to do all the things with you at the same time. If we're all doing that, then we can come to like a nice agreement. But generally that's complicated. Generally people have their own lawyer. My client has me. We have what are known as four-way meetings. Maybe we can all talk it out as adults.
Right.
Maybe if two lawyers who are immature can't talk it out as adults, then we get a third person involved, and now we're spending a boatload of money. We have a mediator, two lawyers, and two clients, and then we try to work it out. So that can happen, yeah.
I always just think of the Wedding Crashers opening scene where they're doing the mediation. Like, hey, you could throw some miles our way. Like, it's okay if you want.
Yeah.
Splitting up everything.
Nah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and then sometimes it's like you don't think it's going to be like a hot button issue. Like the other day, someone's like, I want this bracelet back and it's $400. And if I don't get the bracelet back, the deal is off. I'm like, dude, there's like $6 million in other assets on the table and you want to throw it down over $400? No.
He's like, I have no idea what that bracelet is.
Yeah,
Like,
well, no, and I mean, sometimes it's even like crazier stuff like, I want, the baby photos. Okay, we can all agree that like that is important. But I mean, these photos may have been burnt in a fire. They may have been in a flood. Maybe you lost them. Maybe you guys never even took baby photos. And now suddenly you're asking for them. And it's like, you're just being irrational.
Right.
But yeah.
What about, there was a situation that I see, like when I knew a guy, he was living inside of his business. He got a divorce. His wife pretty much took the kids, took the house. And for the last 3, almost 4 years, he's been living inside of his business, inside of his van, because she like wiped him out. Do you see a lot of cases like that?
I mean, a lot of things can go sideways, right? So it's like, here's the main take home from this is, if you are seeing your kids less than 10% of the time, so I call it the death zone. If you're at 10% or under, I don't care what you do. You can be working at McDonald's part-time. You can be multi-millionaire Jeff Bezos. If you're seeing your kids under 10% of the time, truth be told, you're paying a boatload of child support. And that'll probably wipe you out because on top of the child support, there are what are known as the mandatory add-ons. Meaning you got to pay for uncovered healthcare expenses, you got to pay for daycare, so you're already paying a boatload of child support. Now you're paying all these other expenses. You probably can't afford to get an apartment. You probably can't afford a lot of these things. So yeah, there are these horror stories out there. There's always a solution generally. I mean, there's some exceptions. I mean, some people are in this kind of death zone for a reason, but for most people, got to go back to court, got to get your foot in the door, got to spend more time with your kids. If it's just spousal support we're talking about, I mean, maybe your wife or your husband is working now. Maybe they got remarried. Maybe they're doing something else. You can always go back to court and modify these orders. I think what's tough is, lawyer or no lawyer, court is hard. But I mean, you got to make that hard choice to go back, because if you're in this position where you're like, I can't afford to live, and you're just letting it be status quo, well, the court doesn't know, right? The court's like, oh, I'm sure everything's fine. I don't know. But if you're not going back to court and saying, hey, judge, you got to modify this order. Hey, judge, I lost my job. I can't pay this support. Court's going to tell you, hey, you need to come back. So, I mean, a lot of these horror stories, I'll talk to these men and women. I'll be like, how long has this been going on? They'll be like 2 years. And I'm like, why didn't you go back to court a year ago? I mean, you can modify these support items at any time. So yes, they're out there, but I mean, you also got to help yourself.
Yeah.
It's just knowledge right there. I mean, people don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly. I also knew another guy, he wasn't possibly like the best father in the beginning. Had an addiction problem. Great guy, great guy, but had his issues. Got divorced. Ended up having. He was a high earner, by the way. He ended up having to pay his ex-wife alimony, like something like $20,000 a month. He was paying her, pretty much wiping him out. And he got clean. He bust his ass, worked 16 hours a day, and still couldn't really be afloat. Went to court multiple times. She actually has a boyfriend. They live together and everything. He's hiring her as well, but they will never get married because why would she get married when she's getting this free money from him? And she's angry at the guy still. They hold on to them grudges for a long time. So
slipping that photo.
So then he's busting his ass, 16-hour days, just to pay her alimony. Went to court multiple times. Court's like, don't care. And essentially like worked himself to death. Like eventually ended up passing away.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But anyways, like there's nothing people can do, men or women can do in that type of situation where it's like, I'm paying you alimony, you're doing great, you make good money, your new boyfriend who lives with you, but whenever we go to court, he doesn't live with you. You're not going to get married to him because you're taking all my money. There's nothing the courts can do.
Does it
about
ever
that.
end? Does
it
alimony
ever
ever
end?
end?
Whoa, oh yeah, yes.
When does it end?
Yes.
When you die. When you die.
So I mean that's a horrible story, and I don't like to hear stories like that because I mean everyone's got a story like that. To be frank, I mean some of are about I didn't get custody of my kid, and I went back to court, and the judge hated me. And then something happened, and it's a bad story. These financial stories are bad too. I mean, the bottom line is, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking in the beginning, is you got to be persistent. And it's horrible to say that you can go to court and get a bad ruling and it doesn't change the status quo, but you got to be persistent. You can't let one bad ruling be a setback for you or two or sometimes three. I mean, let's just stick with this example with the support. I mean, times have changed, right? I mean, it used to be you had to remarry for spousal support to terminate, or somebody had to die. But times have changed, and now it's cohabitation. And so, not everyone can afford a PI in a situation like this. It sounds like maybe he could have, but I mean, he could have hired a PI to say, hey, this guy's always around. But if we don't have the money for a PI, what can we do? We can get those bank statements. And the bank statements today are going to show that the sugar daddy is transferring in, money for the nails here on Zelle, money for the facial here on, PayPal, money for the Louis Vuitton here on the credit card bill that he paid for. And so judges now are savvier that if somebody is paying someone's credit card bill, that's income to that first person. Mm-hmm. Or if somebody is handling all these expenses, or if it's a free place to live, that's income to that person. So you got to go back, you got to be persistent, and you got to bring the receipts, right? You got to bring the receipts. Literally. And, especially in the last 5 years, and this is a man and woman problem alike, anyone who is purchasing luxury goods or going on vacations, you going to Maui before it was cheap, it's expensive. But yet you're telling the judge, I can't afford anything. Judges don't believe that anymore.
Red
but
flag.
you gotta have the proof. You can't just say it. Say, they went to Maui. Because now the judge is at a standoff. She's saying, I won the triple spin wheel spectacular free trip, and it's a once in a lifetime thing, even though I'm living with this guy, versus the guy who's saying, no, she does this all the time. You gotta bring the receipts. So I mean, back to this guy, it's a horrible story, and there's a lot of horrible stories out there for family law, but you can't be dissuaded by one negative experience. Two, you just got to be persistent. But yeah, it ends. I mean, short-term marriage, half the duration of the marriage. Long-term, it's a little more complicated, but it'll end. It ends. Everything ends.
Is there
hopefully not in death.
Are you able to basically say I want to go back and I want a different judge, or can you go to a different court or a different, to?
So this is an interesting dynamic, right? I mean, the short answer is you're mostly locked in with your judge. And I think actually it's pretty even now. Both men and women do not like some of their judges. But here's the thing. There's a lot of ways where you might not have that judge. Number one, all these family law judges are on a 3-year rotation. They do 3 years in the family law departments. And they say, all you family law attorneys are psychotic, but we're out of here. We're going somewhere else. And so you're going to get a new judge every 3 years. If you need a trial that's over 2 days, you're going to get a different judge. So there are ways that the system has different judges coming in for you. And then just for other reasons, there may be somebody else that comes in to heavy hit. Worst case scenario, you get so crosswise with your judge that it's like personal feud. It's not supposed to happen, but in the history of man, it's happened to at least one person because this is why it's in the law. You can file a motion saying the judge is biased. They're probably going to give you a new judge because they don't probably want any part of you at that point either. They're like, this guy's saying I'm biased. I don't want to deal with him. Yeah, we're done. So there are ways to have a different person take a look at it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I got a question. So what would be some good ways that somebody who was in a bad situation, that got a bad ruling, maybe they lost custody or they got divorced and they were in some of these situations that you're describing, like with your friend, what would be some good ways for them to come back, like you saying, be persistent, go back into the court, get back to trial, but the judge doesn't like me? What could that person do to improve their chances, to get seen in a better light from the judge, or to improve their chances of maybe getting their kids back or ending things like with the alimony, et cetera?
Evidence is king, right? I mean, and so what the courts are looking for is you to bring the receipts in some way or form. Where people struggle is it's he said, she said.
Right.
You don't have any evidence, you're struggling. It's struggle bus all day. So, I mean, look, one of the things nobody knows about the county is the Family Law Facilitator's Office. It's a free service. You go in, they'll help you fill out paperwork. They'll help you conduct discovery. They won't go to court with you because it doesn't quite go that far. But, I mean, they'll set you up to be successful. It is free. And so, I mean, if you're feeling like, I don't want to hire a lawyer, I hate lawyers, I feel you guys. You can go to the facilitator. Spoiler alert, they're lawyers, but they'll help you for free. And they will do a good job. And a lot of people are very successful using the facilitator's office. So that's a free service, and you can get great results with that. Fundamentally, a lot of these people, they need the evidence. So if you're going to the facilitator's office, they're going to teach you how to do discovery, written discovery, get documents, get admissions, things like that. Or if you have the money, you're going to hire a lawyer. What do all lawyers like to do? They like to do discovery, and because they know it's going to get them evidence. If we're talking about a custody case, I can tell you the top things I look for all the time. Social media.
Let's go.
Because as we were just talking about, I mean, it's king. I mean, and so you think your Snapchat is private? No, it's not. You think your Instagram story is only going to be up for a day? No, it's not. I mean, I've seen Instagram stories that people posted thinking it was going to be gone, and we're still talking about it 5 years later. So be very careful what you post, guys. Yeah. Pro tips. So if we're looking at a custody case, I mean, text messages, social media posts, voicemails. I don't like to encourage people to video record, but in circumstances, certain video recordings may be helpful. But social media generally is the treasure trove of what's going to help your custody case. You're taking a hit from a giant bong and your kid's over there. Yeah, we're probably changing custody. You're doing a keg stand and your kids are in the other room. We're changing custody. So custody. Financial side, I mean, bank statements, we've touched on it so many times here. Everyone has the ability in a family law case to issue subpoenas to banks. I mean, that's cheap. And they have the ability to get these statements. You just go through the statements. Again, like we're talking about, I'm going to go, hey, you went to Louis Vuitton, you paid out $2,000. You went to Maui, you paid out $10,000. You're working in McDonald's, somebody deposited in $15,000 into your account so you can make these purchases. So bank statements on the financial side is something most people can get to. On the custody side, social media posts, sometimes there's a crossover for both, right? Like you're throwing down. Like I had a case recently where the girlfriend was talking about all the Cartier that her boyfriend had bought her. And specifically the TikTok was, he bought you, oh God, I'm bad with brands. He bought me Cartier, and I'll just say he bought you Louis Vuitton, with the inference being, we're balling out now.
Yeah.
We got lots of money. And so the other side's lodging this for custody, right? They're saying, look at this. This is ridiculous. They're also lodging it for financial reasons, like, hey, Sunnen's client, he's so rich. Look, he's buying all this Cartier. So yeah, social media definitely for custody, bank statements for finances for sure. Easy tips.
That's great.
Do you so where do you see, what are some of your future goals with your firm, and where do you see yourself in like 5-10 years?
Well, I kind of like this space. So 5-10 years now, we have an amazing space. So it's a toss, but I don't know. It's so tough. I think for me, I do not want to be in court much past 15 years. And so, I'll let you all speculate on how old I am, but, 15 years is kind of my absolute upper threshold. 10 years, I'd kind of like to be done going to court. I would like to transition to more of a mediation role and say, you know, forget hiring Sunnen for the guy who goes to court and argues. We want Sunnen for the guy who's going to sit around a nice table like this and talk to us about settling our case. Trials are draining, win or lose, so it's a lot of work. So I'd like to be done going to court in the next 10 to 15 years. That's long-term goal. The firm, I like having quality people. I'm not a guy that's like, I gotta have my name on everything in town. I'm not a guy who's gotta employ, you know, millions of people. I don't need to make a giant empire. I like treating my employees like family. I think I do a pretty good job of treating them well. I most definitely don't throw things at them like other lawyers do. So winning there. But, you know, a little bit more growth. I mean, there's, you know, some people like to bring on some partners. So another couple attorneys, couple more people, keep it still kind of that tightly knit circle. But yeah, a little bit more growth, no more court in 10 to 15 years, but that's kind of where I see myself.
How do you attract these high quality people into your business?
Well, San Diego's a small town.
Yeah.
And so we're all making connections, whether we're on a podcast or not. We're talking to people all day. I think personal friendships at the end of the day is the way to go. I mean, I think that's why we were all struggling so much in COVID, is like, we were forced to not talk to people.
Right.
And so going to court every day, I see people, you're building connections. Yeah, these could be people you hire. I mean, the other way is traditional ways, social media. Hey, word gets out, Sunnen is hiring because he's got an ad on like a more traditional platform, LinkedIn. Again, you know people, you got personal connections. This is how you're going to attract people who want to come work for you. Also, I mean, people are seeing what you do. They want to come work for you. Yeah. And if they don't like what you're doing, then they're not going to apply, which is good too. I mean, that's why the free market works. If they're like, hey, I hate bald guys that are obnoxious on podcasts. I mean, hey, that's cool. It's not going to be a good fit for me either. So, but yeah, I've always got my eye out and, you know, making these connections. We're super active in the community. I mean, you know, you guys had Dan on recently, and Dan is like the emperor of doing things for the community. You know, we do things ourselves, and so we're making connections that way. Like last year, we were sponsoring college students from, you know, families that have never had somebody go to college. We're doing scholarships for that, so word gets out there. Cool. Yeah.
So how often, are you attracting like young people that are just coming out of law school? Is that type of thing? Or is it more so like people who are seasoned and they're looking to, obviously a partner would be someone that's more seasoned coming in. But
you got to have that balance, right? Because, I mean, ideally, I'm looking for someone who was like me all those years ago. That's like young, fresh-faced, ready to learn, hopefully with a lot more hair. I used to have more hair, too. It's cool.
It's the stress. It's not
it's exactly. But you got to have a balance between people who want to learn, and then you got to have the KG veterans that are there that they've seen it, they know it, you know. you get an ex parte notice, they're not running around going like, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? They're like, dude, I've seen this like 50 times.
Right.
I mean, to talk up Adrian for a moment, I mean, Adrian's also got over 10 years experience. And, you know, he's always calm, man. I think sometimes he's calmer than me. It's like, he's like, yeah, no big deal. I'm like, but this is no big deal. I'm like, okay, cool. You got it. So,
Nice.
I mean, you got to have that mix. I think what any business, law or non-law, doesn't want is the people who are just collecting a paycheck. It's like, you don't want, I'll use like a baseball example. You don't want Mark McGwire on the last gasp farewell tour where he's batting 180 and he's just collecting the 20 million. You know, you want somebody that's gonna believe in what you're doing. So
Right.
yeah, you don't want anyone on the farewell tour or the goodwill tour either, for that matter. So yeah, you don't want either side.
Yeah, I mean, how quickly do you discover that? Like, have you ever hired somebody who came in and they were all hoorah and passionate and they became just a check collector?
So one of the things that was good for me before I started my own firm, and one of the things that pushed me to do, is I was working for this woman and I was basically running the firm for her. And she was basically like, I have other priorities. I don't want to go to court. I don't want to do this. And so she kind of delegated the hiring and sometimes firing to me. And so that was an area where there were people who come in and they give you the lip service. Like, I'm so excited to work here. And I look at them and I'm like, I know the firm's reputation and you know the firm's reputation and we both know it's bad. And so you're telling me you're really excited to work here. I know you're not being honest with me because this is the same ad that my boss has put out there 6 times this year. You're not being honest. Like, somebody in that scenario come in and say, you know, I just want to see if it's going to work. I would be like, check, because, you know, they're being honest, is they know this ad's been out there all year. So I got a lot of hiring and firing experience in that. I think right now, though, I mean, we just brought on a new receptionist and she's amazing. But there's a lot of people that interviewed for the position that were all very sincere. I mean, dude, I personally feel nobody really liked the lockdowns. I don't know. Everyone's got different opinions, but I feel people are looking for, you know, human connections. People want to be out there and working. People want to be out there with other people. And I mean, I thought, you know, 2023, there was way more quality candidates out there than, I don't know, almost ever. So yeah, I thought that was good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is there any advice you would give to the up-and-comer, the kid? Either he's in law school, maybe he wants to get into family law, maybe he wants to open up his own firm. What kind of advice would you give to that young man or young woman?
You got to work hard, but a lot of lawyers will say this. They'll try to dissuade you. They'll be like, oh, you don't want to do that. Or, oh, you know, it's too much work. But I think, especially going back to my last example, there's a lot of people that are coming out of law school right now that have that fire and that passion and that desire to make a difference. I mean, last 3 years were negative in a lot of ways, but they're also positive in a lot of ways. Is you're seeing a lot of people come out of law school that are like, oh, you know, my friend got a restraining order on him and it wasn't right. And, you know, I got to change those laws and I got to go work for change. And you're seeing other people saying, you know, my friend didn't get a restraining order and I got to go work for change. There's a lot of people out there now that really want to make a positive difference. So I don't think we should be dissuading them. I think we should be telling them to go for it. I mean, especially like, I view the access to starting your own law firm as actually lower than when I started. Because I mean, again, if you're starting out, you may not have enough clients, but if you can talk and you're somewhat funny, I mean, all lawyers think they're funnier than they are, myself included. But I mean, if you can talk and you're somewhat funny and you go on TikTok and, you know, you can get like 100,000 followers, I mean, that's something that did not exist when I was starting my business. You're going to get clients. And, you know, or podcasts, you know, you're going to go on a podcast. You may not get paid for it, but you're going to get clients. You're going to get that exposure. You got to grind. And so I think we should be encouraging these people. I mean, also, like, you don't have to look at traditional spaces. Like, you get a co-work space. You could work from home to start out with. I mean, and you may not even need a receptionist starting out because there's answering services that didn't exist back in the day.
Right.
So I think if you're willing to do it, you should definitely go out, live your dream, because there's been so much history up to this point of people saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. You're never going to succeed. There's too many lawyers. I mean, there are too many lawyers, but you know, so much negativity to this point in human history. I think we should be telling people you should go for it, because the time of you had to get a giant loan to have your own business, no, that time's over.
Yeah.
And so you should be going for it. Best practical advice I can give people is your reputation is everything. And this goes for anyone, no matter what you're doing. Your reputation is everything. Hey man, you want to be a fly-by-night neon sign guy and be known as a skeezy guy, and you're fine with that? Great, your reputation is everything. But for the rest of us, that you got to guard that like gold. The second thing I think that's most helpful for young lawyers is protect your client at all times. And, you know, going back, you're asking me how am I successful? I know my clients inside and out, and nobody is perfect. I'm not perfect. And I know they have flaws. And I go into that courtroom, what are my clients' top 5 flaws? And so when the question comes from opposing counsel, and it does, and I've already prepped them, and I'm already ready for that. Whereas there's so many lawyers that they don't want to put in that work. They don't want to find out about their client, and they're exposed in the first 30 seconds. You go down in flames in the first 30 seconds of any hearing, it's over. And then you're back in that situation where you may be living in your van for years because, you know, your lawyer was not paying attention or you weren't paying attention. So you got to protect your client at all times. A good fallback is you got to know the rules of evidence, because it's great watching it on, you know, if you could, but you can't handle the truth. You can't handle it. But it's like, you got to be at the stage where you're like dropping the evidentiary objections from the get-go, because if you're letting in, for example, let's go back to the Instagram story, is somebody has a fake Instagram account and they're posting something, you may not know it's actual evidence. Some lawyers are asleep at the switch. Oh yeah, it was on Instagram, it's fine. I have no objection. No, you got to protect your client and know the rules of evidence. The other side's gonna go up on the stand and say, my boyfriend's sister dog told me, which they will. You gotta be saying hearsay, because you gotta be saying it. So you got to be ready to fight for your client, and you got to know the rules of evidence.
That's objection hearsay?
Yes.
That's it.
The dog said it. Dog hearsay, Your Honor.
I love that. Really fighting for your clients.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you want. If you hire an attorney, you want somebody who's gonna fight for you. You know what I mean? That's that's what I would look for if I had hired an attorney.
Yeah.
Are you gonna fight for me? Are you gonna go into the arena and object to everything?
Yeah.
That's a little extreme.
Objection, he didn't object.
Yeah.
Chris, object.
But to that same point, it's like, it seems like getting to the point where you're truly able to fight for them, a lot of that is asking those hard questions.
Gotta ask the hard questions.
To the client. Like, hey, you got to tell me everything, bro.
Yep.
Like, client privileged, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you can tell me everything because I got to know what I can defend against. I don't want to have any surprises coming out the woodwork.
Yeah. No, I mean, you got to be willing to have these uncomfortable conversations with your clients, especially in family law. Not a day doesn't go by where I hear about some weird sexual thing. I'll stop you at that point. I'll be like, okay, I'm good. I got the details. Hey, it's super kinky.
Right.
You're right. Or, you know, drug use, alcohol use, you know, or just being real with people about your finances. I mean, I feel clients, because nobody wants to come in and tell a third party, hey, I'm 5 cents away from being broke.
Right.
I might not be able to pay my electric bill. But I mean, I need to know that, because if you're 5 cents away from being broke and you're at the support hearing and the judge is about to make an order that's gonna put you in the poorhouse, I need to know, versus we step out of the hearing, you're like, oh, by the way, I can't afford to pay my bills. It's like, that would have been good to know.
Dang. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people feel so vulnerable in these situations.
Yeah.
It's just like bare naked. But hey, you're here to
Well,
help.
the good news is it's all confidential.
Right.
I didn't tell any stories. The worst story I think you guys heard was the Judge Judy story.
Right. That was hilarious.
But we take it to the grave, so I mean that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So.
That'd be a funny video, by the way.
Yeah, we'll make it one.
We should make one.
Yeah.
So Chris, you might know, you might not know, but Brandon and I, we run a social media marketing agency. We're a content marketer. Do you have any questions for us that we can give you some advice on your content marketing?
Because it seems like you want a TikTok.
I want to know all about TikTok. Do I need to do the funky dance to be successful?
You don't.
No, you don't. We don't.
Are you sure? Because I'm secretly aching to do the
I
funky
can
dance.
tell. I can tell.
only if you want. If you want to, you could do that.
You definitely have the personality for it,
Yeah.
though. You would
So,
thrive in that.
I mean, tell me what's going on because, I got 4 kids. I'm running my business.
Yeah.
If I'm looking as a businessman and as a lawyer to up my social media presence, where should I be investing my time and capital? I mean, for a while, like Twitter was king, but now it's looking a little shaky. So, I mean, what should I be doing?
Yeah, I mean, in today's world, it's purely about video content marketing.
Right.
Video is pretty much the only thing. Like, you post pictures is cool for like your friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or if you're just following like, swimsuit models. But as far as, when people are trying to grow their business and share information and educate, which is one of the primary aspects of it, it's got to be video. And it's got to be engaging, and it's got to be formatted in a way that's going to get people to want to watch and retain the information and keep you top of mind, etc. So, I mean, but video is the main thing.
So, like, how long of a video are we talking? Are we talking like I'm watching a half-hour YouTube video and I'm asleep? Or are we talking like
Right.
15-second snippets?
Yeah, there's a couple sides to it,
Right.
right? I mean, YouTube is definitely its own platform. What's interesting is YouTube has stood the test of time.
Right? I mean, it's still there.
It's just
It's the
like
strongest platform.
the one platform that was in the very beginning and is literally still the strongest to this day, and it's never going to go anywhere. Primarily because videos that are on YouTube are what we call evergreen. That's like real estate. You put a video on there and it could forever be valuable to people. As long as it is valuable, people are always going to be able to go back and watch it, and it can always make you money as a creator. So that's why one of the reasons why YouTube is so strong still. And yeah, that's more for long form content, right? So like people are still searching on YouTube how to do things. How do I do this? How do I
be a lawyer?
Yeah, how
I
to
hear
be
it
a
all
lawyer.
the time.
Exactly. They type it in just like they would Google. It's the same database, but it's easier. It's like I would much rather at this point type something in on YouTube and watch someone talk about something via video than have to read an article or skim my way through articles, right? So it's a great platform to create resources for people to learn and to be educated. And you just got to be good at making videos and writing scripts in order to keep it entertaining, right? To get people to want to continue to watch. And there's like a really special way that these creators are able to do that and that we're able to do. So that's just like kind of strategy and structure. And then the other side is the micro content.
Yes.
So,
Sorry. So yeah, I was
gonna let him go on.
Yeah. So like,
someone tell me about micro content.
well, I was about to-
If only
bad,
someone
my
was
bad.
here that could tell me about it.
no, like the biggest advice I give everyone is you want to be you. You have a strong personality. You don't want to change that. You want to be you. You want to be Chris. Another thing too is you want to educate. People want to be educated, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to give them short, educating content. So I like to call it educational marketing, because you're educating. That's what people want to be educated and entertained. And if you can combine the both, you're the winner.
Yeah.
Another thing is, like a lot of lawyers, we had this problem with like a lot of our clients starting off, is they want to speak lawyer talk. Well, this deputy, I can't even say the word. If I can't, this is why I tell my client, I'm like, if I don't know what you mean, no one's gonna know what you mean.
Yeah. You
gotta act like you're talking to an auditorium full of elementary school kids, right? Yeah. And you want to have a strong hook, something that's gonna catch your attention. These 3 reasons is
why you shouldn't punch your spouse.
Why you shouldn't punch your spouse? Let me tell you a story.
Because the reality is that these topics are really interesting.
People love
tricks.
list videos, am I right?
Yeah.
And even going into YouTube, because YouTube's a beautiful platform as well. So you have your short form content that goes on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can even post on Twitter too. I don't think Twitter's dead.
Yeah.
People are hating on Twitter right now, but Twitter's still going strong, and I think it's
it's going
stronger
through
than
changes.
ever. Yeah.
Do we still call it Twitter?
X.
Oh,
X.
okay.
X.
No one's ever gonna stop calling it Twitter
Yeah,
until like
exactly.
20 years.
And then they're gonna quit Twitter. I mean X.
Yeah.
And then on YouTube, you sort of want to use the same strategy you do for short form content, but you want to have sort of bullet point. You can go like live and just sort of like ramble on like maybe a law just changed and you can explain that. But then you can also structure your video with a strong hook, point one, then bullet point from that, like three points to that 1 point, point two, 3 bullet points to that 1 point, 3, you know, and you want to keep it concise and entertaining the whole time.
Yeah.
Making sure it's simple. Man, people need simplicity.
They do.
It's true.
Simplicity.
Yeah.
True.
And the one thing that people don't realize is that you're buying time in these videos. So
True.
like we always talk about with the short form and the long form. Even a long form video, you're still buying the next 3 seconds, the next 10 seconds, the next, you know, so you have to continue to keep them engaged. Even if it's longer, you still have to realize that you're entertaining, right? And then you have to continue to give this entertainment value.
And another thing is you have, what, 4 kids?
I have 4 kids.
Nice.
Nice. A wife, you have a business to run. You cannot be focusing on social media and your clients and your kids.
He already knows.
I ran
Facts.
They're
focused on social media though, so it's cool.
I clocked my hours in one time. Haven't did that ever. So I clocked my hours and I realized it takes over 40 hours to pre-produce, script, shoot, edit a client's content, right? Do you have 40 hours every month to do that? No. So you want to hire a professional who can do it for you. So you only have to show up 3 hours a month and have it done for the next month, right?
Yeah.
And then it's evergreen. Then here are some of the benefits, right? You're gonna attract clients, of course. You're gonna attract talent. So when you're popular on social media and you're creating these engaging videos, people are gonna want to work for you because you're the cool. First, for one, they know about you, and you're the cool company to work for. And third, a lot of attorneys work on a referral base. Because you're always posting, other attorneys are following you. You're always on top of mind. So whenever they have a case that they don't do that falls in their lap, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna give it to Chris."
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom,
Yeah.
bing, bang.
So wait, one follow-up question, like short form, what's an ideal length?
It's going to be anywhere between 15...
Like 45 seconds.
Yeah, 15 to 45 seconds, yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can do that quick, boom. Like, another thing too is like you have a topic. Let's talk about restraining orders. You know, you can create 100 videos about restraining orders and never be scared to repeat yourself.
Yeah.
Don't ever think that, I already talked about that.
Yeah.
No, because you're always capturing new followers, new eyeballs, and you can repeat it all the time, and it really gets stuck in people's head, and we're big proponents on getting stuck in people's head. When you go to school, they don't just teach you something one time, and you're like, oh, I remembered that because I have a fucking super brain. No, you want to repeat
The repetition is key.
repeat it.
Yeah.
And then these people, like, they come to you, they're like, oh man, I learned so much from Chris. You got to follow this guy. They're sharing your content. And then when they get into a situation like, yeah, maybe people are married or they're just getting married. Maybe they're in a rocky situation. Now they want to go and consume all your content. And so when they go get hit with the inevitable divorce, they're like, okay, I'm well prepared. And now you have clients coming to you already well prepared. I already binge watched over 1,000-year videos.
Yeah.
That's creepy, but it
It's
sounds
true,
effective.
yeah. And the thing is, though, is like there's so many things that you spoke about today. Like there's tons of clips just from this podcast that you'd be able to use as great social media pieces, right? But there's so many situations that people are dealing with in their life. They're just the lack of information makes them screw up, right? Are they making the wrong choices because they just don't know? And that's one thing we really like to take pride in with our clients is that we want you to give all the goods, even though people sometimes thinking they're giving the game away. But it's like the more game you give away, the more you're going to earn people's trust in this process of content. They're going to look to you as the trusted leader in the area. And if you could show me things and give me advice that's practical, and I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that. I need to do that. Or if I'm in that situation, then you just become all that more valuable. And you're truly helping people through the content. There's going to be a percentage of people that take what you say and just go apply it without ever contacting you. Then you helped that person.
Yeah, no,
right?
that's good.
And there's going to be a percentage of people that are like, that's great. I'm going to hire you now.
Yeah.
And don't be scared just to put out content. It doesn't always have to be perfect and well polished. If you have an idea on how you feel like it can help people, don't be scared to pull out your phone and selfie mode and just talk for
Because
it.
you got
talk about
that.
it.
You
for a
got
little
it,
bit.
bro.
Yeah.
You got the personality for that.
You got the face.
You got the hair.
You got the hair. What does your business person say? You got the face that caused divorces.
That's right. I mean,
So
should be putting it out.
So put your face out there a lot more, cause these divorces, and get some business.
Yeah.
Hey,
sure,
Chris, do you have any more questions?
No, I mean, you guys are amazing insight. So,
No,
Hey,
you were as well.
Thank you
Really
so much for
appreciate
coming in.
it.
It was a pleasure
Yeah.
meeting you.
Yeah, and other people that are watching this, especially young lawyers, are going to appreciate what you said, especially about starting out. You know, like from what I got, which I've never really heard necessarily yet, is like, you might as well just start your own firm now.
Yeah,
Why
totally.
not?
Yeah.
You know, it's like
What do you gotta
the
lose?
resources are there.
Yeah.
You know?
No,
so
I mean,
that's
you don't
awesome.
need to start out big and fancy now. I mean,
Right.
it's just like, you should do it.
Yeah, and the world is abundant. I think one thing that social media has told us is that there's enough out there for everybody to get. You know, enough clients, enough money, enough game.
And what is the joke? 99% of lawyers make the 1% look good.
Yes.
Chris,
So,
it was a
thanks
pleasure
again.
having you on.
Yeah.
Let's
This
hit the
has
outro.
been-
Oh, no, sorry,
this has been the Get Louder podcast. We
we out. Hit the outro.